Hi, welcome back to Seekers and Cynics. My name is Richard Bentley and this is Bodmin Road Church. And we have been looking in these recent talks at the question around God and science, and is it possible to hold those two things together, or is there a conflict? We started last time looking specifically at the whole area of origins, the origins of the universe and life, because that's often where there appears to be the greatest conflict. And this time I want to zoom in quite specifically and look at the very question of the origin of the universe. All the matter and energy that we are made of and everything around us, where did it come from in the first place? And is there a conflict between the scientific explanation of that, which is Big Bang Theory, and the Christian explanation of that, which says God is the answer? Is there a conflict there or not? Why am I doing this? Well, I'm doing it first of all for any of you who are maybe thinking of becoming a Christian, but you'd like to know that you don't have to throw your brain away in order to be able to do that. And I want to help you to understand that it is okay, and not just okay, but vital, to be able to integrate scientific study with faith. But I'm also doing it for any of you who are perhaps, a staunch atheist. And what I want to say to you is that there is something desperately still missing from the scientific description that is offered by Big Bang Theory. The fact is that a scientific description of what happened and how it happened is not the same thing at all as an explanation of why it happened. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. Let's start with the science. Big Bang Theory says that about 14 billion years ago, that's a 14 with 9 zeros on the end, there was nothing, zilch, naught at all. Not even space and time. Hard to imagine, but there was nothing. And out of that nothing, without cause, because there can be no cause prior to time zero, without cause there appeared something. An infinitely small, infinitely dense, infinitely hot speck of energy, which then very rapidly expanded to become the universe that we observe today. We call that the Big Bang. On that view, every atom in your body and mind that is heavier than a helium atom was subsequently cooked in the core of ancient stars and then spewed out into space in supernova explosions, ultimately to become you and me. We are literally made of stardust, according to Big Bang Theory. So here's a little revelation now. I do believe that that is very likely to be an accurate description of what did actually happen. Why do I believe that? I believe it because there is actually some very hard physical evidence for that theory that I've just outlined. There isn't time in this talk to go into that detail. You might want to check out the microwave background radiation and the story of its prediction and its subsequent discovery. I find that really quite compelling, but that's some research for you to do yourself. The question is now, having said what I just said, is did I just do away with God? And the answer is no, not at all. Because even though Big Bang Theory may accurately describe what happened right back to 10 to the minus 31 seconds from the beginning, it explains nothing at all. It doesn't explain where the stuff came from that went bang. It doesn't explain why it went bang just when it did. It doesn't explain how it was that the initial conditions and the universal constants were so perfectly fine-tuned to result in a stable, habitable universe, and every physicist will agree that the odds against that are staggeringly enormous. Nor does it explain how the equations, often beautiful equations of gravity and electromagnetism and the nuclear forces, came into being. None of that. Believe me, I have a first class in maths and physics. None of that is explained by Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory is descriptive, it is not explanatory. The very best that Stephen Hawking can offer you is this sentence, and I'll quote it. The universe can and will create itself from nothing. Sorry, Stephen, say that again. The universe can and will create itself from nothing. That's what he says in his book. That sounds to me like philosophical nonsense. How can something which doesn't exist, zero, zilch, nought, how can it do something to create itself? That sounds more like magic to me than science. And so do you see, we still need another type of answer to complement the scientific description. We need an explanation still of why it all started. So the question, how did all of this come into being? Well, it may well be answered by Big Bang Theory, but that doesn't explain why. The why question is a different category of question, and it requires a different category of answer. And the Christian faith offers just such an answer. It says, because there is a wise and loving God that willed this universe into existence. Now, exactly how God did that seems to me to be up to God. That's his prerogative. And if he wants to use Big Bang Theory, well, that seems to me to be up to him. And we might speculate about why he did that. But ultimately, the how is up to God. But just because we can study that how and study that process does not give us any right to then say, well, there is no God. Any more than just because we can study the process of a cake mixture baking in the oven gives us any right to say, well, therefore there is no baker. There is nothing, believe me, there is nothing in science that dismisses God. In fact, the beautiful mathematical equations and the perfectly fine-tuned universal constants rather point to his existence, I would suggest to you. And so in summary, the question of origins is really two very distinct and separate issues. On the one hand, the how and the what, and it's fine to let science delve into that, and we should listen to and trust those scientific studies. But on the other hand, the who and the why needs an answer that science could never give. And those two explanations are perfectly complementary. There's only a conflict when Christians start using the Bible to argue against scientific results, and that is foolish. Or when scientists start using scientific results to argue against God, and that is equally foolish. Genesis cannot ever contradict Big Bang Theory, because Genesis is about the who and the why, it's not about the how. And Big Bang Theory cannot dismiss and write off Genesis, because you can never use mathematics and physics to discuss theology. If we keep our categories clear, then we won't go too far wrong. Next time we'll come back and we'll zoom in on the question of life itself and the question of evolution.